I am Iron Man. Ever since Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark uttered those iconic words in 2008, fans have been coming up with theories regarding his character. They've ranged from theories that turned out to be true, such as the one that suggested it would be Stark who created Ultron in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and not Hank Pym like it was in the comics, to crazy theories like the one that suggested Stark was the Soul Stone in human form. But at least they've all been interesting. The latest theory is that Marvel Studios have been foreshadowing their flagship character's fate since 2016's Captain America Civil War. Now, let us explain further. So what exactly are we referring to here? It's the idea that Tony Stark's recurring left arm injury in the MCU may just be hinting at his ultimate fate in this year's highly anticipated Avengers Endgame. The first Avengers Endgame trailer made it clear that Stark is currently enduring what looks like an extremely dire situation. He's floating seemingly aimlessly in space, aboard the Guardians of the Galaxy's M-class ship known as the Benatar, with what looks like a distinct lack of hope in terms of being rescued. Of course, he's not alone. Both he and Karen Gillan's Nebula are on board, following their failed exploits on Titan in last year's Avengers Infinity War. We do know, however, that Stark will make it back to Earth somehow and rejoin the other surviving MCU heroes in order to come up with a plan that will undo the Decimation and thwart Thanos once and for all. How exactly that'll happen is currently a complete mystery, although theories include being saved by everyone from Captain Marvel to Pepper Potts in the rescue armor. But that theory is for another video. Given his obvious connections to Thanos, and being the first hero who sensed the Mad Titan's impending and inevitable threat following the Battle of New York in 2012's The Avengers, Stark will undoubtedly don his Iron Man armor once more, in order to be at the forefront of the upcoming fight against the prune-chinned villain. After failing to prevent the Mad Titan's wicked plan of wiping out half of all life in the universe, Stark has been forced to live out his worst nightmare, and he'll be motivated more than ever to take him down. Seriously, Stark will stop at nothing to make sure his purple adversary pays for what he did. Unfortunately for us fans, that means there's no doubt that he will be prepared to sacrifice himself to save the universe. Stark's fate in Avengers Endgame has arguably been the most talked about MCU topic over the course of the last year, especially after what happened in Avengers Infinity War. Not only was Iron Man the first hero we met in the franchise, meaning he'd truly be going full circle if he lost his life in the culmination of everything that's happened since his first appearance, he also has very obvious personal ties to Thanos. Whether he dies a hero's death or manages to survive his ultimate battle and walks away from superheroism to live a normal family life with Pepper Potts remains to be seen. But we do believe that a recurring injury, which has been highlighted in particular since Captain America Civil War, may be foreshadowing what's going to happen to him in Avengers Endgame. It's fair to say that since he first entered the world of superheroes over a decade ago, Tony Stark has seen his fair share of physical confrontations. While that famous armor does offer a high degree of protection, it's really no surprise that he suffered both temporary and permanent anatomical physical injuries over the years, some of which are starting to take their tolls in subtle ways. However, none of those injuries have been more noticeable than the ones he seems to keep getting on his left arm. Stark's left arm has actually been hurt repeatedly in the MCU. On his very first outing as Iron Man in Afghanistan, a tank shell hit his left arm, which subsequently caused him to crash land. In that instance, he came out of the incident fine, only needing to ice his bruised shoulder when he got back home. In 2010's Iron Man 2, he endured another blow to the left arm when he first donned his armor against Ivan Vanko at the Monaco Grand Prix, and he even got his left shoulder caught by Vanko's electric-powered lasso during that same fight. In 2015's Avengers Age of Ultron, while he was trying to contain the Hulk in South Africa, after Scarlet Witch had manipulated the Green Goliath's mind, it was the Hulkbuster armor's left arm that was torn off and replaced. Of course, Stark didn't suffer that same damage personally, but it's safe to say he would have felt the blow, and it was definitely symbolic as far as this theory is concerned. Over the last few MCU films, however, this left arm curse has become far more prevalent, as Stark is often seen holding his left wrist, as if he's trying to deal with pain in that area. This was shown multiple times in 2017's Spider-Man Homecoming. While Stark's tendency to hurt his left arm started all the way back in the first Iron Man movie, it was first vocally acknowledged in Captain America Civil War. Directed by Joe and Anthony Russo, the third Captain America entry, which was essentially entirely Avengers 2.5 if we're being honest, dealt with the conflict between Stark and Steve Rogers that came as a consequence of their differing opinions regarding the Sokovia Accords, a conflict that ultimately led to the breakup of the Avengers. Over the course of the movie, we really saw Stark's left arm go through the ringer. It was hit by a falling car during the airport fight and had to be supported with a sling for some time before he had to suit up again. Then, during his fight with Bucky Barnes and Captain America in Siberia, he fell onto a metal platform directly onto that very same arm. But it was actually earlier in the movie that he first expressed discomfort over his injury. The injury seemed to have worsened by the time Spider-Man Homecoming was released. For example, he was clearly holding his wrist, as if to soothe it, while he gave Peter Parker a stern talking to after the encounter he had with Adrian Toomes, aka the Vulture, on board the Staten Island ferry. When you consider that the Russo brothers knew they were going to direct both Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, it's more than possible that the emphasis on Stark's left arm injury since Captain America Civil War has some major relevance when it comes to how things pan out for him in this year's epic fourth Avengers offering. It makes even more sense when you consider the fact that the director's siblings also worked with writers Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely on Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame, meaning that ironing out the narrative continuity in the movie would have been a lot easier. Something that's very intriguing is that Thanos' own left arm has been left permanently injured since he executed the Decimation with the completed Infinity Gauntlet in Avengers Infinity War. The Infinity Gauntlet was permanently damaged when he snapped his fingers and wiped out half of all life in the universe, and it seems that it fused into the Mad Titan's left hand. This is something that has seemingly been confirmed by a brief shot of the prune-chinned villain walking through the fields on his farm, which we now know is called the Garden. Given that he's completed his near-lifelong mission to, in his eyes at least, save the universe, there really isn't any obvious need for him to be wearing the gauntlet now, unless it's no longer possible for him to take it off. The parallels between Stark and Thanos have long been discussed by fans, and long before the characters even met, they were aware of each other. Since he dumped a nuclear missile into Loki's portal at the climax of the Battle of New York, Stark has been haunted by the idea of a powerful extraterrestrial being attempting to take over Earth again. The Mad Titan, on the other hand, was clearly irritated by the idea that a mere human could be the one standing in the way of him and his ambition of creating a perfectly balanced universe. Both characters are futurists, who would always make the difficult choices for what they believe to be the greater good. Although they obviously go about it in very different ways, with Stark focused on protection and the more extreme Thanos opting for mass genocide. Regardless, their brains definitely work in similar ways. Given that both Stark and Thanos have noticeable left arm woes, the parallels go as far as suffering similar physical injuries. And if Avengers Endgame continues to highlight Iron Man's impaired left limb when he goes up against the Mad Titan one more time to determine the fate of the universe, it'll certainly be interesting to see how it'll factor into the conflict and its outcome, especially given Thanos' similar predicament. If we assume that it is indeed the Russos who are behind the emphasis on Stark's left arm injury, could it really be that it's been foreshadowing his fate in Avengers Endgame all along? There's no doubt that Iron Man will be well and truly in the mix of the upcoming battle against his big purple fellow futurist, so we can definitely expect him to endure some more physical damage in the movie. Heck, there's every chance he could be killed off completely, but it's entirely possible that these subtle clues we've been shown in several recent MCU movies have been setting up the eventual loss of his left arm. Of course, left arm numbness is also often linked to a heart attack waiting to happen, so that's also feasible. After all, the whole shrapnel trying to enter his heart thing can't have been good for it. But another interesting aspect of this theory, and one that seems the most feasible, is the possibility of Stark wielding the Infinity Gauntlet himself. We've already seen another gauntlet of Eitri's creation on Nidavellir, and a lot of fans believe that it will factor into Endgame. Otherwise, Stark's perfectly capable of forging a gauntlet of his own, what with him being a technological genius, an engineer, and a craftsman. Given that the MCU's surviving heroes are expected to travel back in time as part of their efforts to take down the Mad Titan, possibly to collect all 6 Infinity Stones to prevent him from ever gathering them for himself, one of the heroes will be expected to wield them. While Stark doesn't seem like the most likely candidate on the face of it, given that he's merely a human, he is the MCU's flagship character, and it would be a spectacular way for him to exit the franchise if he was to execute a snap of his own and sacrifice himself in the process. It's definitely worth pointing out that Marvel's comic books have set a precedent of Stark using the Infinity Gauntlet, albeit in a situation that was very different to the current one in the MCU. Regardless, since Marvel Studios usually cherry-picks plots and moments from print and mixes and matches them to create entirely new stories with elements of existing ones, Stark putting on the Infinity Gauntlet could certainly still come to fruition in live action on the big screen. Whether or not Stark's recurring injury has been hinting at his ultimate fate in Avengers Endgame, what does remain certain is that he'll be a big player in the upcoming fight against Thanos, especially given his aforementioned existential connection to the Mad Titan. Avengers Endgame hits theaters in April, and we really can't wait to see it. What do you think of this theory? Has the MCU been foreshadowing Iron Man's fate since Captain America Civil War? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to ScreenRant for more great videos just like this one. Bye for now.